All right. So the question is, how are motivators or coaches going with their own mental well-being at the moment? So my first answer to that is that I have noticed shifts in my energy. So I always use techniques to raise my energy, and there has been some energetic shifts globally that are related to what's going on with COVID-19. And so for me, I'm one of those lucky people who has more time. So I've been able to really look after my energy and give myself the rest that I need. So I'm very tuned in to my body and what it's telling me. And so I've been noticing that after a full day of work, I feel tired. And so rather than pushing on and doing a million other things, I've actually been giving myself that rest. And then what techniques are you using to stay positive, hopeful, and focused so that you're in a good place yourself to be able to help others? So really good question, because it's so important when you're helping others. And the same goes with you guys if you are working on homeschooling, that you will need the energy yourself to be able to help your children. So first of all, I just wanted to answer this question by talking about mental well-being and where this comes from. So the state of our mental well-being, or how well we feel mentally, is a direct proportion and result of how we respond to events. So everybody is going through the same thing in terms of COVID-19 and in terms of the isolation. Some of you have got this on the back of bushfires. So you're actually responding to that, and now you've had this event to respond to as well. So that might mean homeschooling kids and trying to rebuild a farm. But your mental well-being is going to be directly related to how you respond. Now, how we respond to events is caused by our perspective of events. So as you know, we can have 10 people in a room, we can all be watching the same movie, but we can all have a different perspective of that movie. If we were to discuss it afterwards, there would be different people interpreting it in different ways and having a different takeaway from that same event, because we all have our own unique perspective, which is what makes us different. But we also have some power over this perspective, and our perspectives can change. Our perspective, when we don't have a conscious perspective or we're not aware of our perspective, is on autopilot, and it comes from our subconscious beliefs. So being subconscious means that we're not aware of them. They're not what's in our conscious mind. So we can consciously say something like, I embrace these events with a positive attitude, but in fact we notice ourselves behaving in a different way to that, because our subconscious beliefs are actually what are going to drive our perspective. And this is really interesting. Some of you may not have learned this. I was trained by Bob Proctor as a thinking into results facilitator. And what we learned is that we create our self-image. And this ties in with one of the learnings from the Taylors around finding something to love about yourself, is that our self-image is actually created when we're growing up. And so this doesn't mean that we blame our parents and they gave us a terrible self-image, but often our self-image will be learned or borrowed from our parents or the people we grow up with. And so if their self-image isn't strong and positive and confident, then we can adopt that. And so our self-image is really tied into our subconscious beliefs. And this self-image, as I said, comes from our past experiences and the messages we receive. So there could have been an event in the past where we felt like we weren't good enough or we didn't quite meet the mark, and that lies there as an underlying description of who we are, which of course is not true. It was a behaviour, it was an event, and it shouldn't define who we are. But all of this is going to create our well-being, because it will change the way we respond to what's going on right now. So, for example, at the moment with COVID-19 and following bushfires, you might have a subconscious belief that says, I am unsafe unless I can control what's going on. Now, to know whether this might be true for you or not, you might notice whether you want to control things, because this is sometimes the natural fight or flight response that we'll go into. which is what we've learned, is uncertainty is not safe. So we feel like we need to try and control things. And of course, we do need to take action, but this will just self-perpetuate that survival mode. Now, here's an example that I have, and this you can see is actually pinned to my computer screen. So I see this with my peripheral vision every single day, and it says, "Life is for me. My only job is to be love because that is who I am." Now, I want you to know that I did not grow up with that self-image. So that is not what I was taught when I was growing up, and that doesn't make anybody right or wrong. But this is an image, self-image, that really serves me, and I really encourage other people to create self-images in language that makes sense to you, that really serves you. So I have reconditioned my subconscious mind with this image, and you can do this as well. So if you notice something about your self-image that you know is really causing you to feel anxious at the moment, you can look at that and invite a new thought about that so that you can create a new image. I really believe that life is for us, that life is on our side, and we can use that power of life to create what we want if we believe this. But if we don't, if we feel like it's against us, then when things go wrong, and I totally understand if you've lost everything and if you've lost your job and all of those things, it does feel like it's against you. But it's looking deeper than that to see what about this could be for you. So my perspective, in answer to your question, Naomi, around this would be that based on all of these things, my perspective at the moment is curiosity. I'm very curious. And the question that I ask is, how might this, everything that's happening right now, be for me and us? And I don't just mean my family, I mean us as a global family. This isn't just happening to me or my family, this is happening to everybody. And so I really believe that it is for all of us. So the question that I ask is, how might this be for us? I believe that this is an opportunity for personal growth. So I'm not saying that that's what you should believe, but for me, that's what comes up when I ask this question. So if you have more time to yourself, I would really recommend that you use that extra time for personal growth, and I'll share some techniques and tools that I'm using personally. If you don't have more time because you're reacting to a bushfire prior to COVID and you have more work than normal, or it's seeding time or whatever's happening for you on the farm, and you just are going through one of those seasons where you work very long hours, you may be spending more time with family because you have your children at home. And this is a way of growing personally. Personal growth is about becoming aware of our unconscious behaviours and becoming conscious and acting differently. So if, for example, you are spending more time with your family and you're noticing that you're triggered by that, so you're finding that you might be frustrated or impatient or overreacting to things, this is how personal growth works, is becoming aware of an unconscious habit or behaviour or response to something, and being able to go within and see whether you can change your mind about this and perceive what's going on in a different way and respond with a new behaviour. So these are some techniques that I recommend, and they're the techniques that I'm using. There are a lot more than this, but these are the things when I thought about what have I really focused on. I was doing a lot of these things, but I'm doing more of these things right now because I want this extra energy to be able to really give everybody that I work with that positive, hopeful energy. So I consume positive content. Now, I've always done this. I absolutely love reading books, watching videos, doing courses, working with coaches where I am consuming uplifting content. So I seek it out. I have purchased 3 courses recently, so I'm really working on all of those things and consuming that positive content. Roger and Karen Warren have asked, should there be a period of grieving after bad events, and is this normal, and should you allow time for this to pass? Thank you for asking this question. Yes, so it's important for us to express our emotions so that we don't repress them. So for example, when my mum died in 2016, there would be times where I would just be overcome with grief. And the kids can joke about it now because enough time has passed, but they would find me on the laundry floor. I didn't want to sort of do it in front of everybody, so I would just close the door and there was enough space for me to sort of collapse and cry on the laundry floor. And this was so powerful for me to be able to do this, because if I didn't do it, I would still be holding on to it and pushing it down. And, you know, I will still have a tear come to my eye. I have a memory of mum, or I think about the time that we had together. But now it's, you know, these many years down the track, it's just this love and gratitude that I had her for so long as my mum. And so when it's very raw and it's very new to you and you've been through something really challenging, what I suggest is that you do allow yourself to feel the emotion. And it might not come out as tears. It might come out as anger. You might feel really angry. And what we want to do is express the emotion without projecting it onto another person, or causing us to behave in a certain way that's actually unrelated to what the emotion is about. So thank you for asking that question, because it is really important to express those emotions so that we don't push them down. So I'm consuming lots of positive content, and so I really encourage you to do that. What about if the emotion is depressing? Sally asked. So if the emotion is depressing, the idea is to express it. So depression is actually a depressed emotion. So when you express the emotion, it's feeling the emotion. So it's not going on and on about it and talking about it all the time and reliving it all the time. It's actually just feeling the emotion. So if it's anger, you know, feel it. And if you need to get that out physically, you can go for a run or punch a boxing bag, or, you know, do something physical, and just get it out of your body, because it's a physical feeling that you want to express. So moving forward is important. We don't want to live in the past, but we don't want to suppress emotions by blocking them and avoiding them and just turning them off as though the emotion isn't there. So it's not staying in your head and dwelling on it and rethinking about it and blaming and feeling frustrated. It's about an emotion comes up and you allow the emotion to be expressed. So it's the difference between an emotion and thinking and dwelling on the past. The other thing that's really important at the moment, if you have extra time, but particularly when you're feeling anxious or stressed, is to get clarity on your 10-year plan. Now, the reason I say the 10-year plan is because this is the big picture, and the big picture should move you. Okay, so if you've done your 10-year plan and you don't feel anything when you think about your 10-year plan, I would encourage you to revisit it, because it should be something that just brings you so much joy and so much gratitude, because this is the emotion that you can tap into when right now feels like a long way away from your 10-year plan. So for those of you, for example, who are rebuilding after fire, that's what it can feel like. And you may have lost clarity about that 10-year plan, because you might have started to think that that 10-year plan is now impossible. But you would be amazed at what you can achieve in 10 years. You only need to look back 10 years and look at what you've achieved to realise that anything can happen in 10 years' time. So get clarity on that 10-year plan in terms of what life looks like, in terms of your health, in terms of your relationships, in terms of your passion and things that fulfill you and light you up and excite you, and your financial goals around what allows all those other things to happen. So there might be travel plans in there, or a holiday home, or a retirement house in the town. Whatever it may be, it's that big picture and how you would feel if you already had that. That clarity at the moment is very powerful in taking you through times like this. So focusing on the big picture goal, so getting that clarity and having that big picture goal and then staying present in the moment. So you have faith, or you trust, or you know that that will come to fruition. But the way that it will is by you being very present and very focused right now with what's in front of you, because it can get frustrating. You know, we were talking to people last week about all the fences that they need to put up and working all night in the middle of the night to get these jobs done. And so we can really start to lose hope when we look at all of the work in front of us. But if we have the big picture dream and we're really positive about making that happen, then with that energy, we stay focused in this moment and say, how can I bring the best of myself to this moment right now? And that might include noticing that you're tired and you need to get a good night's sleep, which was mentioned before. And you'll only do that if you become present in the moment rather than being stuck in the head. And when we're stuck in our head, particularly if something has been traumatic, we can tend to go back and rethink about it and play it over and over again. And all that does is recreate those emotions around that. Accept and take responsibility for what is. Now, this can be really tough. And obviously, there are a lot of things that you didn't directly have any control over, like a fire, for example, and like COVID-19. Like, none of us were the ones that introduced those animals into the wet markets and had the first case. So we cannot take that kind of responsibility. But if we can accept the things that we cannot change and take responsibility for what we can, which is the way we perceive what's going on and the way we react to what's going on. So in each moment, sometimes when we're frustrated, we're all at home and things aren't going our way and it's hard, we can blame the people around us because that's easier than taking responsibility. So when you feel triggered by something that somebody says in the house, for example, just notice that it is you that's feeling the feeling. So the person said what they said, and maybe they could have said it differently or come at it from a different point of view. But until you deal with the way that you're feeling, chances are the conversation is not going to be effective anyway. So you want to deal with the trigger that you've had, see where that's coming from, and express that emotion in your own private way. Usually journaling is a good way, or going for a walk out in nature. And when you're feeling really good, that's the time to come back and talk to the other person. So acceptance, check in with yourself and see, is there something at the moment that you are not accepting? This comes up a lot with the people that I work with. There's just some things they feel like they can't accept. But if it is what it is, not accepting it is only hurting you, and it's holding you back from the ability to grow and become the best version of yourself. Notice your reactive patterns and shift your perspective. So I am having many more people reach out to me to say that they're being triggered and they're having reactive patterns. So the first thing is to understand what a reactive pattern is. So something happened years ago. It could have been when you were a child, when you're an adolescent, in your adulthood, and you felt an emotion and you never really resolved it. And so what we do in life is we keep recreating circumstances to bring up that emotion so that we can just feel it once for all and let it go. So often the reactive pattern that you're having in a moment actually doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now. So I just want you to notice that and be aware. Am I overreacting to what just happened? Did one of my children ask for a lolly or an ice block one more time and it was just the last straw, you know, and you notice, wow, I really overreacted to that. It wasn't so much about the child asking for something again. It's about something else that's going on. So Jack has asked how to bring up the conversation with someone to take responsibility when you can see that they are in the blaming mindset. Yeah, so this is a great question, Jack. So I get asked this all the time. It's so easy to see other people doing it. If I had you all on Zoom, I'd ask you to put up your hand. Who finds it easy to see other people doing it? It's so much easier to see that than often to see it in ourselves. So what I would say is that when somebody is blaming, Angela's like, yes, yeah, I know. And so when they're in the middle of it and they're in a reactive pattern, they will not be open to hearing it. So in terms of sharing an observation that you notice about someone else, the first thing I would do is understand this law, and that is when you observe something, no matter what it is, whether it's in somebody else or something that you're observing, it's always about you. That's why you see it. So that's why we notice something. So whenever I'm noticing something about someone else, first of all, I acknowledge that it's a judgment because I'm judging what I can see. I'm like, oh, they're being reactive. So easy to do. Or you're not taking responsibility, they're in blame mode. And then I go straight back. As soon as I've noticed that thought, I go straight back to myself and I say to myself, when have you recently not taken responsibility, or when have you blamed somebody else? And I just become aware that I'm not perfect in that area and see whether I can improve in that area. But in terms of a loved one, I wouldn't go around giving this information to people that, you're not a really significant person in their lives, because it's not up to you to do that. But with a loved one, timing is everything, and the vibration both of them and you is everything. So when you're both in a very relaxed state, I always start the conversation with talking about how I do it. So I will say something like, I've noticed that sometimes because of whatever it is, I can catch myself wanting to blame other people about it and not take responsibility for it. And, I wonder whether you can relate to that, or whether you feel like that too sometimes. It may not go well. So just be open to that, that you can plant the seed and it may not go well. You can't be attached to being able to change another person. The only person that you can change is yourself. The good news is you really work on changing yourself, what you will notice is that the people around you will change too, even if they haven't signed up for it. It's definitely a thing, so give it patience and give it time and keep coming back to working on yourself. Look for things to be grateful for. So sometimes you have to look harder than others. Sometimes it's really easy to see all the things that you can be grateful for, and sometimes it's much harder. So some of the people who have been through fires have said to me that the thing that's great that's come out of it is they've been able to rebuild things in a different way. So they had fencing, for example, that had been there for years and they were old, and now they've gone for something that is much more strategic and fits with their long-term goals. And they've replanned things the way that they've set up their farm and done things differently. So it's been an opportunity to start afresh. Now, obviously, it's not the way you would have chosen to do it, but it's always looking for the silver lining. I always say that what I went through with my mum when she died in 2016 is what led me to start the coaching that I'm doing, and I'm so grateful for that. So even though it was a very tough experience at the time, it really woke me up and opened my eyes to something that I absolutely love doing and really serves others. Hydrate. It sounds like a really, really simple thing to do. It reminds me I need some now. But drink more water than you normally do, because when we're stressed, we have the cortisol running around our bodies and we need to flush it out. And so this is the time to hydrate more than ever. The other thing is that water energizes us because our bodies are made up of water. And so if you're rehydrating all the time, and if you pace this out, so not sculling lots of water all at once, but just pace out your water intake, there's lots of things you can read about how to effectively hydrate, you will find that you will have more energy. And it takes more energy to be conscious and to be alert of our patterns and how we respond in situations. When you find people being really reactive and blaming and frustrated, it's often because they're tired. So if you can just have some compassion for them with regards to that as well. So hydrating will really improve your energy. I've discussed this before, but I can't not include it. More than ever, I'm very, very aware that what I eat is important. And often in situations like this, we do the opposite. So put up your hand, even though I can't see you. If you eat the wrong things when you feel stressed, this is quite often what we do. So we're actually looking for a dopamine hit. We want to feel better. So we think, okay, I'll eat something sugary, or I'll have some alcohol, or there's somebody who smokes, I'll have a cigarette, because you're looking for a dopamine hit. And so it's just looking to feel better. So just acknowledge that what you're looking for when you reach for that thing that is not actually going to make you feel better in the long run is that you're going for a short-term fix, a dopamine hit. And so look for something that is good for you, that will make you feel better. And it might be going for a quick walk, or stopping to just have a little giggle with one of your kids, you know, tell them a stupid dad joke. No offense, dads. But, you know, just something to just give you some relief, because that is why you're reaching for it, is to feel better. Exercise in nature. You guys have this in spades. You're doing it anyway. When you're out working, you're exercising in nature. But there's this incredible thing that happens when we do something as simple as walk, and that's sort of striding the exercise. So many of you know that that's my exercise of choice. I do it every day, 7 days a week. On the weekends, I get to sleep in and do it a bit later. But I love it. And one of the reasons that walking is so powerful is that, as you know, for those of you that came to one of the last retreats that we did on the back of the deep dive, is that we work with our left and our right brain. And for us to be able to be the most creative, which is what we all need right now, if we're going to pivot our businesses, if we're going to reach our goals, we need to be creative. And for us to really get optimal use of our brains, we need to integrate the left brain with the right brain. And when we integrate the left and the right brain, then we can learn really quickly. So this is what happens from 0 to 7. So this is why we can learn a language. You know, if you've got kids under 7, get them to learn a language. They start languages often too late in school, I think, because you can learn anything really easily in that period of time, because we're not one side brain dominant. Then after about the age of 7, we become right side dominant or left side dominant during particular times of the day and during particular activities. So when we go for a walk and we are alternating the left arm swing with the right leg coming forward, and we're doing that cross body action, we're actually using the opposite side of the body to the side of the brain, and we activate it through that movement. And so doing exercise like that, so, you know, when you do exercise where you bring your knee up and you cross over and you put your elbow onto your knee, things like that, those exercises are integrating left and right, which will make your brain more creative. So this explains why I'm forever doing videos when I'm down walking, no makeup on, looking terrible because it's first thing in the morning, just out of bed, because I'm so creative when I'm walking. So some of you might be able to relate to this, that if you go for a walk, or if you exercise, if you cycle, or if you go for a run, that you find that that's a really creative time for you. So exercise in nature, not just working, but doing something physical in nature is going to be really powerful for you. And then number 10 is be kind. If you're feeling really stressed and really frustrated, just think about somebody else and just go and show an act of kindness to them. It really doesn't take much, but it will completely reduce your stress levels. You will just feel different in that moment, because that is our true nature, to be kind.